My name is Eamon O'Kane and I am an Irish artist based in Denmark and Norway, and this is my exhibition Intimate Expansive at the Rochester Art Center. In the second gallery we have, I guess the starting point there is modernism and Europe. Modernism coming out of the Bauhaus, so Walter Gropius is represented there with a diptych of his Meisterhause in Dessau, and Walter Gropius founded the Bauhaus, but he also designed not only the actual educational complex of the Bauhaus, but he also designed the living accommodation and studios for the different teachers, including himself. And these were called Meisterhause or master houses. Walter Gropius was also an original kindergarten child. So I think you can see, just as with Frank Lloyd Wright, an influence of Froebel's gifts and his education. The other aspect in this room, the second room, is that I have done a series of paintings which explore the origins of creativity in a different way. It's based on a survey or a study that was done by psychologists at Berkeley in the 1950s, and they invited 10 famous architects, all men, unfortunately, because that was the time. They invited these 10 male architects, including Frank Lloyd Wright, but he turned them down. And it was people like Richard Neutra, who also worked at Taliesin with Frank Lloyd Wright, I.M. Pye, and a whole range of other architects, Elliot Noyes. And they went on a field trip for a weekend and were interviewed by psychologists for that weekend and put under several tests. Essentially, they were trying to find out where did creativity and originality come from, and they were trying to find out if there was a commonality between all of these architects in terms of their genius, architectural genius. And as far as I can tell, they didn't really find anything out because they were all completely different and completely different approaches. And the other paintings in the room include paintings of Philip Johnson's Glass House and paintings of Mies van der Rohe's Farnsworth House. Philip Johnson was the head curator at MoMA. He was the first head curator of MoMA, and he was the one that brought the international style to America. He was a huge fan of Mies van der Rohe and Gropius and all those guys, and he did a major exhibition. He also knew Frank Lloyd Wright, and he visited Taliesin as well. They had a friendship, but kind of it could get a bit edgy sometimes, as what was the nature of actually being friends with Frank Lloyd Wright. Philip Johnson trained to be an architect later in life. In his early 40s, he went back to school and he studied architecture. And he, I think, was one of the people that sort of started postmodernist architecture, because he was a very friendly thief in terms of the way he appropriated other architecture, not just from the past, but from his contemporaries and from the people he admired, including Mies van der Rohe. So actually, the Glass House is a complete riff off of Mies van der Rohe's Farnsworth House, which, due to complications, didn't get completed until after the Glass House. But Johnson and Mies were both kind of watching each other over the shoulder, mostly Johnson being inspired by Mies. And so what I've done with these paintings is that I've turned the Farnsworth House into a black house, and when it's normally white, and a simple switch of colour, and the Glass House into a white house. I've also put in a red curtain in the Farnsworth House, so it has this kind of atmosphere. This is maybe like a nod to people like David Lynch, but also Stanley Kubrick and The Shining and things like that. So there's a kind of edginess to the paintings where you're not quite sure if you're you're on the edge of a utopia or a dystopia or a bit of both. And then the final works are paintings based on Eileen Gray's E1027, and that sort of completes the link with Le Corbusier, because Le Corbusier had a very interesting relationship with Eileen Gray, a professional relationship, some would say maybe a very unprofessional relationship, in that he, after Eileen Gray having very obviously considered him a very interesting architect and being inspired by him, and then after she designed the perfect space in his eyes, he then proceeded to try and appropriate that space. And by the time that Le Corbusier died, people actually thought that he had designed the house, not Eileen Gray. He also tried to purchase it. It was owned by Eileen Gray's lover, because they had split up, but they had built the house together, and she had given it to him, and Le Corbusier tried to buy the house, but he wasn't able to. So then he bought a plot of land next to it and built a little cabin, Le Cabane, which was a place where he would go on holidays, and then he bought more land and built a series of chalets above the house where his guests could come and visit. And then at a certain point he was a guest in the house, and without Eileen Gray's permission he proceeded to paint murals in his own Le Corbusier style, very garish, almost Picasso or Braque inspired murals all over the house, completely cutting against the aesthetic, the minimalist aesthetic of the house. He did these paintings nude, so there are photographs of him painting in the nude, and this was not done with any sense of humour whatsoever. This was absolutely appropriation of another person's work. And luckily, history has been rewritten since, and Eileen Gray's legacy has been recognised.